I did that last video and it was pretty somber. Some of you didn't like what I had to say, that we should be upbeat and have faith and those types of things. But I hope that you understand that when you teach things that are easy to understand, when you allow lies and deceits to go on without addressing them directly, no matter what your faith is like, no matter what your hopes are, if you don't reprove the people once in a while as a whole, then nobody thinks it applies to them when it really applies to all of us. Of course, the important thing is thereafter to show that we have an increase in love for the people. And so I'm kind of doing that here. That's really the purpose of this video. Yes, I am going to address some things going on in the world, but probably in a way that you would least expect. Maybe not. Maybe you will expect me to do this. I'm going to save the most interesting for last, because I'm hoping that I can keep your attention long enough to get to that, and I think you'll like what I have to say. But it'll be interesting for you all nonetheless. I'm certain of that. I did that video and I said, the best of us are still at fault here. We've allowed our leaders to do things that they should not do. We haven't called them to task, and even if it means nothing more than, like so many other commentators have said, just putting something up on YouTube, writing letters. And I realize that not all of that's effective, but it's the voice that has to get out there. It's the observation. The power of the observer. God said, stand on the watchtowers. Watch what's going on. Shout their iniquities from the housetops. The very least we can do that. If you're not men and women of action, and I don't expect the women to do that much. As a matter of fact, I would pray that you don't, but that you get behind a good man. We need to do things. We need to take actions. And sometimes those actions may not be in our personal self-interest, but if we're doing it to assist or protect the lives and property of others, no greater love is there than to sacrifice yourself in behalf of someone else, to stand between the innocent and the tyrant. But where I really want to go today is, because we could talk about what's going on. I think I did that already in the last video, talking about how they manufacture these enemies and these wars, and how rather than healing these rifts between people, they exploit them. Divide and conquer, the old Caesarian idea. Julius Caesar, of course, in Gaul. So these aren't men and women of peace that exploit these things. They buy up armies and navies and rule with blood and horror, and some of you may have heard that somewhere before. That's how they control people. And like I said, they've done this for thousands of years. And they're being permitted, I think, by the cosmos to do this at this point. And we're going to talk a little bit about what the best way is to combat that. And this is going to seem very simplistic. But I really want to ask all of you to go to 1 Peter and read that. Some of the feminists aren't going to like what's there. But I'm talking about, men and women working together, about loving each other, about honoring each other. And some of the things in there may not seem politically correct or whatever, but concentrate on the overall message, which I'm actually going to give you here today. I'm not going to read all of 1 Peter. I wouldn't take up your time that way, but it's absolutely essential that you do. Especially, I'm just going to refer to it here, 1 Peter chapter 2 and 3, I think are extremely important. But I'm going to jump ahead to 1 Peter 4:8. And, we can talk about the Apostle Paul. He did not write Peter, by the way. And we're going to talk about who Peter is in here in just a minute. But the Apostle Paul wrote something very similar. And whether you're a Christian or not, please don't think that you have to be Christian to listen to this message. This is a philosophical, humanitarian message. And it should cross all religions, all socioeconomic levels, everything, races, period. Because it really applies to all of us. And Paul said that, if you have faith and you have hope, but don't have charity, you have nothing. All right? Charity is the most important thing that we have to have for one another. Faith can fail, even hope can fail. But charity abides forever, because when you love and support someone, no matter what the circumstances are, when you treat them fairly, when you give them the benefit of the doubt, when you do all you can to help them accomplish the good in their lives, that's a good thing to do. And that is true, abiding love or charity. So I wanted to say that and jump to this verse in 1 Peter chapter 4, verse 8, because I think it sums it all up. Now I'm going to read it verbatim here. The whole thing is applicable, but I think this is very important. And it goes for this world and the next and the world previous to this. And I won't get into all that, but let me read this here. Verse 8, and above all things have not just charity, fervent charity among yourselves. For charity shall cover the multitude of sins. Let me read that to you without interruption this time. And above all things have fervent charity among yourselves. For charity shall cover the multitude of sins. We all make mistakes. We all are short of the mark. We all do things that we shouldn't. But if we have open arms, I'm not saying that we embrace sin, don't misunderstand me, or evil. No, not at all. But we can still show charity, love for each other. We all, break down once in a while and react to something and get angry or whatever, but that's part of being who we are. So just remember that when you get upset, the most important thing afterwards is to show an increase in love. And that goes not just on the individual level, but on the national level as well. I'm not saying we have to be passive necessarily, and I'm certainly not saying that we need to allow others to take advantage of us or to endanger us. But just be aware of what our motives are. And that kind of goes to the heart of all that we see happening in the world today. The motives that are presented and the pretenses and the deceits are not in line with reality, what's really happening and why. And I want to talk a little bit about what you can do to make sure that you're reacting that way, that we're all reacting in the positive way. And I'll get to that in a minute. As I said, I want to save that to the end. Let me talk a little bit about Peter here first, because I think this is important. Now, there will be people who will disagree with this, historians on both sides of the fence, scriptorians on both sides of the fence will argue this out. But I'm going to take it at its face value, okay, that Peter was written by Peter, whose real name actually was Kepha. Kepha is his actual name, and he is one of the brothers of Jesus. Whether you want to think that they're half-brothers or, adopted or whatever, I'm not going to argue that point. I personally believe that they are actual physical brothers. And there are a lot of reasons why I believe that, both historically and because of what's written in the New Testament. But regardless of that, Kepha is who we're talking about, the rock. In Hebrew, in the Aramaic at the time, Kepha kind of meant rock. It meant, hard thing, which he was. And Peter, of course, is the Greek form of that. Okay, and that's how we got it down today. But why am I talking about that? Why am I mentioning that? Because I think Peter, or Kepha, unlike Paul, in a lot of instances, very much like James, because James was also Jesus' brother, had an insight into this man known as Jesus that people who hadn't met him, of course, would not know. And they're always talking about these issues of charity and the other two that I'm going to get to in a minute. And so I just wanted to bring that up to you about Peter, that he had a special insight into the principles that we should hold dear, especially the importance of loving each other and allowing that love, even when the other person makes mistakes, to allow our love to cover those sins, not absolve them, but certainly not to hold a grudge, that kind of thing. Okay, not to use it against them. Okay, give them the benefit of the doubt. Be wary, don't let somebody hurt you, but on the same level, make sure that you offer them the olive branch. Okay? Now for the part that you might really enjoy. Maybe not. And of course, as usual, I interpolate and extrapolate a lot, but I feel that it's okay to do that. I've had a wide range of experiences, as we've talked about before, and this is no less than that. And it has to do with sex. Oh